Hi everyone, this is Abel. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're gonna be talking about my favorite books of 2023. But before we start, remember that if you enjoy science fiction and fantasy books, especially space opera and epic fantasy, this is the perfect place for you. So if you want to see more videos like this, consider subscribing, leaving a like, and maybe comment down below. Now, a little bit of a disclaimer. I don't like the star rating system. I don't like giving stars to the books I read. I don't like that you have just 5 stars to give you an example for the best books you have read during that year. And I am not that kind of person that keeps 5 stars close to the chest, because those 5 stars are just meant for literally stuff that changed the world and revolutionized the writing journey of a whole culture, of a whole country. I surely understand why many people don't really like to give 5 stars. I don't agree. My mind doesn't work like that, because I think that rating system is generally flawed. Maybe too much. It doesn't work, because I can understand why you will use that system for buying goodies and stuff, things that may be useful for your daily life. Because Amazon, of course, is a store when you buy stuff. It's a quick and easy way to understand that something is worth your money. But with books, I don't think that does work. Because even if you have clear indications of what those 3 or 4 or 5 stars means, everyone on every platform seems to have its own personal spin, and giving those 3 or 4 or 5 star a personal and really subjective meaning. So it becomes really impossible to understand what they're thinking about their book, the book they have read, when they give it 3 stars, 4 stars, or 5 stars. And keep in mind, I'm not speaking about books that should have been rated 2 or 1 stars. I don't finish books that I'm not enjoying, so I don't rate books lesser than 3 stars, because I don't finish those books. This is all to say that I think that system is reductive. It is stupid, it is intrinsically flawed. If someone finds a new way to rate books properly, because they're deep, they're nuanced, they have different meanings for different people, I will gladly embrace it. But I am stuck in that system and I have to use it. And I know that many readers and many people watching this video will completely disagree with that. And they will think that the star rating system on Amazon and Goodreads is perfect, and that if I don't like it, I simply have to shut it and to go on with it. And I understand. That's all to say that most of the books you'll find in this list are 4 stars books, because I enjoyed them. I thought that they were good. They were very entertaining for me, and they didn't make me regret the time I have spent reading those books. And I am not the kind of person that divulge any kind of time and mental energy reviewing books that I haven't liked, I haven't enjoyed. I don't have time to spend doing stuff that I don't love anymore. I'm too old for that stuff. Absolutely. And a couple of books in this list, they are 5 stars, and I'm very happy to give 5 stars to books that I have thoroughly enjoyed, even if they're not perfect, if you try to analyze every single aspect of them. Because I think that books are more than the simple result of a addition of every single pieces that they're made for. Books are not that kind of product. They are not something that you can define with the rules and applying the rules and guidelines that you use to define and quantify every kind of other products. They're products, yes, but they're work of art too, and they're intrinsically connected to the sensitivity and sensibility of the artists that made them. Okay? I hope you understand. I hope I didn't explain this in a poor way. But let's put that all aside and let's talk about the books. The first book I have finished in 2023 is The Shadow Rising, the fourth book in the Wheel of Time series. This is by far probably my favorite epic fantasy series of all time. And I have many favorite epic fantasy series of all time. I don't have just one, okay? I'm not that guy. I can't decide. I have more than one and I'm happy about it. I'm not shy about it. And I've heard from many people that this is the best book of the series, probably, for them, because this is the moment when the series embraces a completely original direction, that it finally diverges from being so much heavily inspired from the Lord of the Rings and becoming something completely unique and really compelling. I can certainly understand where they're coming from, but this is not my favorite book from the series, by far. I still think that The Great Hunt is still the best book for me that I have read from the series. I still have a very long journey ahead of me to complete the series. I like huge tomes, huge books, but you already know that I'm a very slow reader too, so I don't think that I can read more than one of two books from this huge series each year. So it will take me a couple of years to finish it. But my opinion is a little bit different, because I don't think that the Wheel of Time has ever been that much similar to the Lord of the Rings as everybody says. I think that is unfair. And of course my opinion can be biased, because I don't read the books just as a readers. I respect that point of view. I certainly understand, because I've been a reader for most of my life. But I have started to read the Wheel of Time when I was already an author. So my point of view is biased, because the differences between the lore, the world building, the structure of the story, and the character development are so bright and shining for me that I really can't understand why people think that that book, especially the first one, that everybody says that it is basically a copy of the Lord of the Rings. It is not. It is so different. A few tropes you can say they were established by Tolkien. They were popularized by Tolkien, of course. And there are a few similarities on the structures, maybe. But it is enough to say that that book is a copy of The Lord of the Rings? I think not. And even if I can understand why people generally, on a bird eye overlook to the books, they will think that they're so similar, they're really not. They're incredibly different on a language level, on a structural level, especially on a character development level. You can say that a few of the characters have similar qualities to other characters that you may find on the Lord of the Rings, but that can be said of every single book, and not even just fantasy books of the world. So I think that focusing too much on that kind of similarities, it's a little pointless. And the fact that people enjoy this fourth book so much and so much more than the others because it is different from what they think it is the Lord of the Rings, and especially comparing book 1 and book 2 to the Lord of the Rings, given all I have said, it becomes extremely pointless and a little futile, you know. This is definitely a turning point for the series because it has a weird structure and embraces the lore and world building of Randland, of the future past world of the Wheel of Time, and it is surely interesting because a few things were completely unexpected for me, because it went really down in the rabbit hole of a few civilizations that are they keep the center stage of the embrace the center stage of the story in this book. But on a character development point of view and on a story structural point of view, I think that The Great Hunt is still a better book. Especially the third act of The Great Hunt is so incredibly rich and powerful and deep that I don't think that book 3 and 4 are still on par with that. The last battle for The Great Hunt, it's still so deeply ingrained in my core as a person and in my mind, and that just thinking about it and speaking about it it's pushing me to go and reread it. It is amazing. It is amazing. Of course, I can tell you much more about the overall story for this book. I can simply tell you that this is a moment in the Wheel of Time that everything changes and goes on a really personal and really distinct direction that makes the series stand apart. And because of that, I can understand why this book is so much beloved. But a few threads of the stories, a few direction that the personal journey of the characters they're directed for, they didn't resonate with me so deeply, and I'm a little bit worried about what will happen in the subsequent installation of the series. Because of the consequences of what happened, but maybe that's a good sign because it makes me even eager to read more about it. But I'm pretty sure that the rest of the series will be will cement its status as a favorite series of all time in my mind and in my library, of course. So that's book 4, and I still think that book 2 is better, but book 4 is amazing too. Then we have Assassin's Quest by Robin Hobb, which was a difficult book to finish for me because it's so long, but because it has a few really glaring and pretty evident flaws. It is still a book that I immensely enjoyed, hence its presence here in this list, because even flawed books from Robin Hobb are better than 99% of everything you will see around on any bookshelf for any kind of genre or subgenre, because she's that good. She has this uncanny ability to wrap your heart around her characters and make you so incredibly invested in their journey. So I'm absolutely sure that you know what I'm talking about. I don't think you need me to give you an overview of this series. This is a low fantasy kind of chivalrous series that has a Middle Ages aesthetics with a very rich character development. It's a very character-driven story that it's both coming of age story and revenge tale. It was difficult for me to finish because it has a lot of meandering. There's a good chunk of the book, a good portion of the book that you simply follow the protagonist around, traveling. You have the feeling that nothing is happening plot-wise, and that's a critique that many books of Robin Hobb have been subjected to, even book 1 and book 2. but those books had a much more clear focus during the character development, because you were following Fitz almost like memoirs. So you knew he was telling you the story, his life, his particular takes on the events that surrounded his personal life. Here in this book, you had the feeling that the author was searching to give us a specific kind of character development, that it is specific to a part of the story that I cannot mention because it will be a spoiler, that it was not particularly useful on a whole. It was fascinating, it was very engaging, it was so well written, like everything else. All the words and all the pages flow in a very smooth way. That's the magic of Robin Hobb. But it is a long story, and it can be exhausting to get to the end, especially if the end is a little bit underwhelming. I think that the major flaw of this book is that the author continued to add new characters. Of course, that's a quirk of the particular and peculiar structure of the story, because this is a memoir. It is the protagonist recounting the stories of his life, so he goes and meets new people during his personal journey. So it is completely believable and understandable that even in book 3 you still have new characters that will have a pivotal role in the development of the story. But this is a fantasy trilogy too. So if you go and add the new characters you need the space to make those characters breathe and develop and have a personal arc. And I don't think that most of the new characters in this story, they have that. And I still keep asking myself why those characters were there. And of course, as I told you, this is a memoir, so they don't actually need a reason to be there. Most of those characters, they were meeting by chance. They were simply happening. So I understand why. But they took a huge part in slowing down the story to a glacial pacing, almost to a hard stop in a few moments. But I am so much in love with the character of Fitz. I'm not a huge fan of the Fool. I don't know why. I can understand why people love him so much, but for me, it sometimes is a little bit too much cartoonish. Not so much in this final book, but generally he is. But Fitz, it's top-notch character development, so flawed and at the same time so genuine, so unique and so powerful as a person. It's amazing. So even if this book is not exactly what I wanted from the ending, for the ending of this series, I knew that generally many people had told me that it had a weird structure and some problem with the pacing, and it was not going to be mind-blowing as an ending, that it was maybe the weakest entry in the series, so I was prepared. But I loved it nonetheless, with all the quirks and flaws and all the unfulfilled expectation and desires. Then, Harbinger of Justice by Andrew Watson. I have told you about this book many times because of the very interesting world building, because of the very good characters and the fantastic ending. This was a surprise in the very best way possible, because I like to pick up new authors and read arcs and try to be useful to them, to be on board with them in that very difficult point in time when you're launching a book and you're making the jump and you need reviews to push the books and to make it visible all around in a very competitive market. And every arc, every advanced reader copy is a risk, because time is precious and I don't like to waste my time with books that I don't like. But this one is good, it is genuinely good, and in a way reminded me of the experience I had with the Mistborn trilogy, which is still my favorite series from Brandon Sanderson, even if I just finished World of Radiance, which we will talk in a bit. So it has that really tight plot, very straightforward prose, very good characters, an amazing setting inspired by ancient Egypt, and it managed to do a miracle. It has a character that I won't say I was not enjoying it, but it left my scratching my head for a bit, because I had the impression that his point of view was changing too much from the beginning to the end. What we had at the end of the book, I thought it was not compelling as a character development, which is not one of the protagonists. It's a secondary character. But at the end of the book, after the ending of the final battle of the book, it is in a very specific position. It changed completely in a very reasonable way, and it is so fascinating because the book ends, and even if he is not one of the protagonists, he's a wild card. And I hope that Andrew Watson will give him more space in book 2. I won't say which character it is, because I don't want to spoil the book for you, and I want you to experience it on your own terms. But this is all to say that Harbinger of Justice was a very, very big surprise for me. A very good and unexpected and very welcome surprise, and that you should follow Andrew Watson as an author, aside from being an amazing booktuber and Instagrammer, and that I can't wait to have a advanced reader copy of book 2 in my hands, because I want to read it soon, very soon. On the Wings of Quasars by T.A. Bruno. This is book 2 in the Song of Camaria trilogy. I had read the first book a couple of years ago. I loved it. This is a space opera with a lot of exploration and a lot of sociological and political intrigue. And this is a peculiar book too, because usually, second installments in trilogy, they tend to go bigger and better with bigger scope and trying to crush everything that came before, because you have inflating books becoming more and more ambitious. This is different because the book is actually shorter than the first one, and it has a very different vibe, not only because you have a very big gap time-wise, because many years have passed since the first book, and also because you have a different core group of characters. Most of the original cast from book 1 you have in this book, but you have additional point of views from other characters that become so much more important during the development of the story, and because you have the introduction of a villain here that I don't think it was even mentioned in book 1. And that's particularly risky when you insert a character in this far in the story and giving him so much power and making him a pivotal point for the development of the story. It is risky if you don't do it well, but this was done perfectly. And this story also have a very different structure. This is more of a murder mystery that has consequence at the end of the story and gives you answer for something that was just barely hinted in book 1. But it is very coherent. There's a very good underlining consistency between book 1 and book 2, even if they are so much different. It was extremely enjoyable. The writing style is very smooth, and the story is compelling. It is, I will say, even a better ending than book 2 of that book 1, even if this is just the second part of the story. And I'm pretty pumped to read book 3. I hope we'll be able to read it really soon, maybe in January. If you haven't read anything from T.A. Bruno, I will surely suggest you to go and read the book 1 and the whole trilogy I'm sure that reading from various reviews that I've seen on Goodreads that it is even better than book 1 and book 3, so absolutely, by all means, give it a try. Wielders of Woe Inferno by Jeffery Roarke Jr. This was a surprise too, because I was not planning to read this book. I picked it up because it is part of the self-published science fiction competition of 2023, and I was scrolling through the wishlist. There is an Amazon wishlist with all the books listed there, and the cover catched my eyes. The synopsis, it's right in my alley. This is a space opera, and then it has a little bit of science fantasy too, with a very unlikable protagonist, especially at the beginning, that goes through a very compelling story. There is a lot of action, a lot of plot. It is, in a way, I don't know if I can say a revenge story, but it is definitely that trope of the prince that it's been stripped of all of his power, and it is trying to achieve again its status and to fight against political machinations and a very real threat to the existence of the whole Imperium. So it is not a very likable character at the beginning, because he's so self-appointed and so brash and so sure and so very straightforward, and he lives in his mind and he thinks he's always right. So, but it is nice to see how it develops during the story. The book has a very nice pacing, a few very nice plot twists, and a very compelling vibe aesthetically. It has that space fantasy, space opera vibe that is very strong. It is nothing particularly new, because you can see the influences from Dune, from Star Wars, and from all of that kind of space opera, but it is done in a very good way, and I suggest you to give it a try, because it is a very good book. Eclipse by Herman Steuernagel. I have mentioned this book many times because I've liked it so much. This is a space opera that it is very easy to read, very approachable, with very good characters and an interesting world building that it is not particularly fleshed out in this book, but I'm pretty sure that it will become more and more expansive in the subsequent books. Herman Steuernagel has a very approachable writing style and makes the story so enjoyable, because it keeps a very strong focus on characters, on their feeling, on their reasoning, on their minds, what they think, what they feel. So it is really visceral as a writing style, and then makes you really invested in those characters very fast, and I liked it, and I'm pretty eager to read more about this series, because I've seen that the books become longer and longer. So everything I want, I'm pretty sure I will find in those other books. So yeah, if you haven't read any science fiction ever, this is perfect for you, because it will absolutely make you a fan of space opera. And if you're an experienced science fiction reader, this will go so fast. You will fly through the pages. It is a very good introduction, and it is very clearly an introduction to the rest of the story. So somehow it will leave you hanging, because it ends in a very, very painful cliffhanger. So, but 3 books are already out, so you can fly through 3 books very fast. Book 4 will absolutely be published in the next year, and during the next month we will have a cover reveal, and we'll know more about the synopsis. And I suggest you to go and read it. The Forsaken Planet by Bryan Wilson. This was a book that really made me question what I was going to do, and because you know, as I told you, I don't review books that I don't like, and the first 20% of the book I really struggled, but I saw the light at the end of the tunnel. I saw the potential in this book, so I forced myself to go through that really hard and really rough for me 20% of this science fantasy books with a huge school setting. And I was rewarded because the rest of the book is amazing. It completely flipped it over, and it completely changed my mind about this book, because I saw that the writing style was good. I saw that there were very interesting ideas for the world building and maybe for the character development, but I was not liking what was happening and the way it was told. But the moment the story actually begins, when the core cast of the characters, they get to the point where they need to be to learn and to become the fighters to fight against the invasion of Earth, and they start to begin to grow as characters, the story opens up, and the novel becomes infinitely enjoyable. As I told you, the writing style is very easy, it's very fluid, it's very approachable, and the characters are good. They have just a few of them are really deeply fleshed out. The others, I think they will have more space and more character development in the other novels. And I showed you the cover a few weeks ago on X, and you can find the cover on the socials from Bryan Wilson's, and it looks even better than book 1. So I enjoyed the book. It has a very good ending that leaves you with, and it left me with my mouth wide open, like, what? And it was pretty unexpected, and that's not easy for me because I'm old and I've read a lot of books. But it was good, so I'm happy that the spark finally ignited and that it became a fire, and that I'm a fan of the book now. I'm the bandwagon of the supporters for this series, and you should definitely give it a try. The Soul of Chaos by Gregory Wunderlin. My review for this book is almost ready, but when I will upload that review in my December and January wrap-up, I will be to a point that I have told you about this book so much that you probably already know everything you need to decide if you want to read it or not. This is an epic fantasy / word and sorcery with a very interesting world building and with really compelling characters. It is pretty difficult to become involved on an emotional level with the characters at the beginning, because so much stuff happens and so many things need to be explained and organically by reading the book, that it has a very steep curve. And at the beginning you'll be struggling understanding what's going on actually, because the author definitely doesn't hold your hand explaining you everything at the beginning. There's no info dump in this book, and that's admirable, but it makes it pretty difficult at the beginning. But if you keep reading, and you will know more, and at I think 20-25% of the book, everything will start to make sense. Even character relationships that should be clear at the beginning, you don't understand why you have to wait that much to get everything so clear in your mind. So that can be a flaw, of course, of the book. Something could have been smoothed out in the beginning, but either with that, the book is very engaging. It is very, very classic in a way, but it has a few very original spins too. So The Soul of Chaos was one of the most enjoyable read of my year, and that's why it is in this list, and I wholeheartedly recommend it to you. River in the Galaxy 2 by Natalie Kelda. I don't have a review still, but I'm working on it. I finished the book and I'm working on it. It is difficult for me because this is an extremely emotionally taxing book. It has a few very hard-hitting themes, and they hit very, very close to home for me, so that's why I'm taking my time to make a proper review. But this is a space fantasy view with a very rich aesthetic. In a way, it is like if you take the Treasure Planet from the Walt Disney, the aesthetic of the Treasure Planet, and make it a very broody, very mature, a little bit depressing story with a huge scope and very, very nice characters, very deep and complex characters. So the story is difficult on an emotional level, but it is very enjoyable. There's a lot of adventure, there's a lot of character relationships, there's a lot of trauma and PTSD, but it is a very unique story. And if you're trying for something different, this is the perfect book for you. You knew that World of Radiance was going to be in this list, because it is objectively a fantastic book. This is the second book in the Stormlight Archives by Bryan Sanderson. For many persons, and so much people on Goodreads and on Amazon, they say this is the best book of the series. And I haven't read the others, so I can't tell, but this is definitely a better book compared to The Way of Kings, which I enjoyed, but not that much. I was not a fan of the language, of the writing style, of the characters in any way, really. But I was curious about the lore, about the world building, and about the underlying connection with the rest of the Cosmere. So I decided to go on, especially because they were gushing about how amazing this book is, and I surely can understand why. This is very compulsively readable. It is so much smoother than book one. There is so much more character development, because I don't think that The Way of King had that much of character development, honestly. But the characters are in a very special place at the beginning of the book, and they're in an amazing and mind-blowing place at the end of this second book. So, and you finally understand so much more about the world building and the lore, and I finally was able to connect with them, with Kaladin, with Shallan, and with Dalinar, and especially with Kaladin. It is a very fascinating book. Roshar is still not an interesting place for me as a planet. The aesthetics of it, the vibes of it, it does not resonate with me, but the story is good, and a few sentences, a few pivotal moments of character development are so heart-hitting that I was teary, I was crying because they're so good and so deep and so motivating, and they actually made me think about a few stuff about my life, about my past life, a few decisions and a few struggles I went through and I'm still going through in my life. So it is a very compelling read, and I can understand why people love it so much, finally. And I'm curious to see how the rest of the story will be. I will surely read Oathbringer next year, maybe during the spring, during the summer, not that close, because I just finished book 2 and it took me almost 2 months to finish it. But I'm happy. I'm happy that I finally am on the bandwagon of the fans, with the huge crowd of fans for this huge and very long book series that will, the first arc would finish in 2024 with book 5, and then maybe we'll pass 10 years before we say arc 2. Let's see. But I am just doing my I'm just in the middle of the Cosmere, because I read just Mistborn Era 1. I tried Era 2, but I didn't like it. I will try to give it another shot. And now I'm reading this. Many people say that this is the wrong reading order, that I should have been reading Warbreaker first and the Lantries first. But maybe next year, maybe next year. The Way of Edan by Philip Chase punched me in the face a few times. With absolutely no respect for my well-being. In a way it was very surprising, but in another way not, because I was sure it was going to be good. And because I've heard just good things about this book, and very few critiques. Mostly constructive and very positive critiques too, so I was sure. But it surprised me because even if it is a very classic high fantasy book with the trope of the bright-eyed, wide-eyed young man that discovers he had amazing, incredible abilities, the way it works in the story and the lore and the world building are so unique that it was a huge surprise. On a language side of things, it is very interesting because various people from various parts from this world, they use the same language in different dialects or completely different languages, and in a few moments, especially when they have to do things, strange things that transcends the limits of the reality, they use an archaic language, and you read it in the book and you can figure it out and you try to make it sound in your head. It is so archaic and so fascinating because it almost looks like singing and chanting, almost like a song. It is very fascinating. You have to read it to understand it. And the book is surprising because of its peculiar take on elf. Elven people in this book are scary. And they're somehow unintelligible. You don't understand what they want. What's the deal with elves in this book, Philip? Why are they so weird and so scary? What's going on? I want to know, because at the end of the books you still don't have any answer about it. They have a huge influence on the story and on the characters, but they are separate, they are aside, they're this lingering present in the mind of the protagonist and on the rest of the world building. It is strange because in a way people are afraid to talk about elven people, about the elf, and that's why they're so mysterious. So please explain it to me, because I don't want to have nightmares about elves. Okay? Please, Philip, help me. But this book was amazing. The writing style is top-notch. It is very rich. It is approachable, but it is still rich. You can see that there is a huge commitment and in the craftsmanship of the book, line by line, word by word. It is very well written. It is never actually flowery, but a few times I had to search for the meaning of the words on my Kindle to understand what does it mean. I don't know that word. And of course that's because English is not my mother language, but I bet that a few people in the US and the UK, they will not know what a few words mean, and they will be forced to search it on the vocabulary. But that's a good thing, because in that way we learn something new. So I suggest you to give it a try. This trilogy, this book is amazing. I'm pretty sure that book 2 or 3 are even better, judging by what I see on other reviews and on Goodreads, and I can't wait to start reading the rest of the series and finish it maybe in 2024. You know what is my favorite book of 2023. This is the last one. You already know, but I will talk about it briefly because I don't want to be annoying. I know I'm annoying when I talk about and speak about this author. This is A Queen's Command, book 2 in the Legend of Tall Quartet by J.D.L. Rosell. Josiah did a miracle. He took everything that was good in book 1, which I dearly loved, and made it even better. He gave us a second book that it is top-notch. It is exactly what you expect from every book too. It is bigger, it is stronger, it is deeper, and it has a bombastic ending, but at the same time, even if it has a ton of action and high stakes, it is deeply personal, very intimate. Every character has amazing character development. The relationship between the cast and the main characters is so wholesome and so deep. The villains are despicable as earths, and the book is amazing. I am so invested in this story that I really can't explain it properly, and being an author, that's a failure for me because I should be able to convey to you, choosing and selecting and picking the right words, the huge scope of this story and the amazing way that Josiah Rosell is able to mix the very intimate and very personal exploration with the huge scope of an epic fantasy story. So by failing in this, I hope to give you a proper idea of how much I'm in love with this story. And I can't wait to continue with the story. If you don't know, the Legend of Tal series about Tal Ehrenfeld, which is a retired fighter and a living legend that has to deal with the consequences of what he is trying to run from. And his past is a very spectacular one, and many things that people say he did are not true, but a lot of stuff people really don't know about what he actually did. And that's particularly fascinating for me, because he's the epitome of a great character, and at the same time he is a paramount of positive masculinity. It's amazing. It's amazing. The book is very strong and it is very well written. The prose is actually top notch. It is a pleasure to read sentences written by Josiah Rosell. And I won't say anything more. You have to read the series by yourself. Just do it. Just do it. Do it. This is all I've got for you today, and this is my last video for 2023. I want to say a sincere and heartfelt thank you for all of you for being part of this small community. I was pretty scared. I was afraid when I decided to start this YouTube channel, because of course there's this huge barrier for me. That is the language. And thank you for being so supportive and for being so patient with me, even if my English is so jaded and it is not that good. But you're so patient and so willing to listen to my ramblings and to engage with me and telling me about the books you're reading and commenting and being part of this very good, very small but special community. Thank you to all of you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a subscriber. And if you have seen this video to the end, if you're still not a subscriber, consider to click the button down below. And I will for sure give you another video at the beginning of next week, at the beginning of 2024, with my plans for this booktube channel and with my plans for my journey with the publication of my science fantasy book in English for all of you to read. And thank you again for being here. Remember that if you enjoy science fiction and fantasy books, this is the perfect place for you. And if you enjoyed this video and want to see more, you can click one of those right here. Thank you. See you next year.